Hi, I'm Geoff and welcome back to xHanky Lifestyle TV. We're back with another quick and easy recipe today. We're going to be making everyone's favourite, meatloaf, with a sweet and sour glaze. So let's get started. So we're starting off, I'm just cutting the bread. So what I want to do here is I'm trying to make some breadcrumbs. You could of course use panko or other breadcrumbs you can buy from the shop, or you can make them yourself with a couple of day old bread. I've chosen to make them with pretty fresh bread here, so it's a bit of an experiment, but basically I'm going to grill these in a toasted oven, cut them up, grill them, and crush them up for breadcrumbs. So while that's going on, we'll now start preparing the garlic and the onion. As my granddad used to say, you can't have too much garlic, so I like to cut it pretty roughly, and I like to add a really decent amount. And sometimes I also add garlic powder too, and I might do that today later on. It's really good. Garlic really helps to add a little bit of an extra kick to your cooking. So the garlic is done, and we're now going to get into the onion. So just dice the onion however you prefer. You can dice it thickly, or you can dice it into very small fine cubes. It's up to you. But the important thing is to have the onion, because it really does set off the base of the meatloaf. As you can see, a medium dice. So now the onion's diced, the garlic's diced, so let's get over to the oven, get the pan on a medium to high heat. We'll try and get the onion and garlic, and we'll fry it until it's a little bit soft and a little bit clear. And we'll also be looking for a little bit of the caramelization on the pan there, so a little slightly brownish colour, that's where the flavour is. It's really important to fry up the onion and the garlic. It doesn't take the edge off it. They're very strong flavours, so it takes the edge off it for when you put it into the meatloaf. So this is a very nice neat little trick, it's just to fry them up first. You could try without it, and if anyone wants to try without frying them, and add a comment below and tell me what you think. I much prefer, I've tried it both ways, and I much prefer to fry these up first, so there you go. As you can see, we're getting a little bit of a nice caramelization there, and I'd say the onions and the garlic are nearly cooked. Okay, onion done. Let's get back and check on those breadcrumbs. So as you can see, they come out of the toasty oven, they're a little bit dry, exactly how we like them. And now use whatever method you like here, but I'm just going to try and crush them up. And they don't have to be perfectly crushed. It's really just about softening them up a little bit. There'll be a few crumbs there, and of course the breadcrumbs absorb some of the juices in the meat, so it helps to give you that kind of meatloaf type consistency and texture. And the other thing about this is you want to get in there, use your hands. With cooking, often using your hands is the best way to really get a really good crush on food. So as you can see, I'm really getting stuck in there, and that's all done. Breadcrumbs a little bit lumpy, but that doesn't matter. And in with the mince meat. So this is just minced beef, ground beef that I picked up at the supermarket. So we've got the minced beef in there with the breadcrumbs, and we're just going to give that a bit of a mix up with our hands. It doesn't look that attractive, but it really does. It does feel good to get in there and just get hands on with your food. So I do recommend it. So give it a go. Once we get that all mixed up, get it all mixed in there, we can start looking at some of the other ingredients that we meatloaf. So here we go, in with the onions and garlic in, some mixed veggies. It's always good to add these if you have kids and you know, they need their 5 servings of veggies every day. Making a meatloaf is a great way to do that. You can get the vegetables in there, and once it's actually in the meatloaf, they can't tell it's vegetables. So it's a really easy win. And I'm going ahead here and putting some herbs in. You can choose what you like with these. It doesn't really matter, it's whatever's to your taste. Today I'm using parsley, a little bit of curry powder, and you could use Moroccan or Cajun spice if you like. I put a little bit of basil. There we go, a little bit of basil. And I'll grab probably that little bit of extra garlic powder that I mentioned before. Just give it that extra garlicky taste because I really love garlic. And then just a little bit of salt and pepper really to season. And depending on your taste, you might want more or less of either of these. I try to avoid too much salt, but I just really have to say I do love pepper. Give it a mix with the spatula to start with, get it going. And this really does smell great, by the way. That's another thing about making a meatloaf like this. Most of the ingredients are really fragrant. Nothing smells better than the meatloaf like this. Well, maybe one thing. Maybe once it's cooking, it smells even better. Okay, so now we're going to crack a couple of eggs into it. You can use 2 or 3 eggs, depending on the consistency you like. But the eggs help bind the meat and the other ingredients together. And so don't miss the eggs out. If you miss the eggs out, it just won't taste right, and it definitely won't stick together well. So the eggs are the critical secret ingredient here. And this is the other secret ingredient, as you can see, tomato ketchup. Don't be afraid to use tomato ketchup. It's a really, really great ingredient to use in this style of cooking. So I quite use it quite liberally, and I'll use the ketchup both in the recipe here, but also in the glaze later. So yeah, don't be afraid to use liberal amounts of ketchup. Everyone loves ketchup. Okay, give it a good mix. Getting in there with my hands again. As you can see, the consistency is really starting to get quite solid now, which is good. This is what we need if we want to make a meatloaf that'll hold together while we cook it up. So give it a good mix. And it's true what they say, the hands are the best tool for this kind of job. You can only do so much with a hand mixer or a spatula. Even a food processor, it's very easy to over egg this one, so to speak. It's starting to look good now. I think we might just about move on. There we go. Okay, so I'm just prepping a baking tray, and what I'm doing here, just a bit of olive oil on the tray, and I'll just spread that out. This is really just so that it doesn't stick. You don't really want your meatloaf stuck to the baking paper. Normally it doesn't stick, but I have had it stick before, so I tend to choose a little bit of olive oil there, and that just makes the surface a little bit more difficult to stick to. Okay, there we go. Okay, now what you need is a cake dish or something similar. I've got this one here. It looks like a sort of a bread loaf dish, but it's for baking small cakes or bread. Now fill the dish with the meatloaf mix. Pack it in there nice and tightly. It helps if this is a non-stick container, by the way. So if you're using one that isn't non-stick, you might want to grease it or put a bit of butter on the inside of it before you do this. Because we're actually going to use this as a mould for our meatloaf. We're not going to cook it in there. Though there is an idea. Some of you in the audience might want to try that and tell me if it results in any better looking meatloaf than the one that we see today. It's getting just about full, so we're just packing out the corners as much as we can, which is what we want to do. There we go, and now bang, upside down. Hopefully if it's non-stick it'll just pop out, and there we go, we've got a loaf. So I can normally make, I normally make 2 to 3 loaves out of a bowl, so I think today it looks like we're going to be able to do about 2. So let's see how that goes. Stretch it all out, and 2 meatloaves is great. You can have, you know, that's actually 2 meals essentially, depending on how much you want to eat. There we go. And we'll flip that one upside down as well, and we're all ready to hit the oven. Sticking a little bit, but there we go. It's as healthy a meatloaf as you can have. At least it's got some vegetables in it. So let's now get this into the oven and get it cooking, and we can then get on to the glaze. So just cover that with foil for now, and I'll usually take this and cook it for 30 to 40 minutes at 180 degrees Celsius, or I think that for our American viewers would be 350 degrees Fahrenheit or thereabouts. There you go. And in she goes. Make sure you preheat the oven first. There we go. Okay, let's get on with the glaze. This is a very basic glaze, but it's pretty yummy. So we're taking a little bit of sugar, a little bit of ketchup. As I said, the magic ingredient, and you know, be liberal with it. Some people like more, some people like less. And now I'm just adding in some vinegar. This one's a balsamic vinegar, but you can use ordinary malt vinegar, it'll be fine. A dash of olive oil, salt to taste, grind a little bit of pepper in there, and then give that a mix with the spoon. And you probably want to add a little bit of water. Normally I add a little bit of water. I'll go and do that now. You could just make more of the glaze, but I prefer to have the glaze a little bit more watery, as you can see there. Okay, now once the meatloaf has been cooking for half an hour or so, maybe 40 minutes, what we want to do is we'll open the oven and we'll pull out the tray, and we can remove that foil now. The foil really is just to sort of keep the moisture into the meatloaf while it's cooking for that first little while, and ensure that it doesn't cook too much on the surface. So there we go, we take that off, and now we'll get the glaze and just glaze the top of the meatloaf, both meatloafs. Spread it liberally all over the meatloaf, try not to miss any spots. And this glaze tastes absolutely amazing, and it's very simple. Sometimes simple is best with this kind of recipe, so I'm looking forward to hearing what you guys think of it, and maybe some of you might have ideas on how to improve the glaze. If you do, feel free to add a comment below, and I'll try it out. Okay, so once we're all glazed, what we'll then do, don't waste the juices that are coming out from the meatloaf, they're the best part, so there we go. And this glaze should finish it off just beautifully. So once you've finished glazing it, back in the oven, uncovered, and around 20 minutes or so should do it, maybe 20 to 30 minutes, and it should come out looking beautiful. And there you have it. That's Geoff's meatloaf with a sweet and sour glaze. This is great as a main, even in your evening meal, with some baby potatoes or some green veg. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope you try and enjoy this recipe. And there you have it, Geoff's meatloaf with a sweet and sour glaze. This is great as the main event in your evening meal, or with some baby potatoes and green veg. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope you try and enjoy this recipe. Please let me know what you thought of it in the comments. Like the video if you enjoyed it, and subscribe and ding that bell if you'd like to see more of this kind of content. I'll see you in the next one.